I have been astonished over the last 10 years to run into so many people that have been extremely successful in this industry. And we got to be good ambassadors because we should be able to attract many more people to this industry as a result of that.
Our shop owners are turning away up to 5 customers a month to the dealers.
Everybody's hooked on right to repair. We're trying to get this passed, not just in the United States, but across the globe.
So after Apex, a few short weeks later, those 2 bills did pass.
Wow.
So that was significant, right?
Now, not everyone's passionate about automotive, but they don't realize, automotive aftermarket can be a super resilient, super lucrative career, very recession resilient.
We have spent an entire generation telling our children that if they wanted to have a career, they have to go to university.
Right.
And now it's going to take maybe another generations to unwind a bit that mindset and says, no, it's not just about a path through university degree, but also rewarding careers in the trades.
Welcome back to another Traction Control. I'm Stacey Miller. It is Apex 2025, and exactly 1 year ago, we sat in this seat with JF Champagne, President and CEO of AIA Canada. I also have with me today Emily Holtby, who is the VP of Government Relations at AIA Canada. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So excited.
Yeah.
So excited to have you guys back in the studio. We have an updated setup. The podcast is doing great, and we have such a great relationship with AIA Canada. And the last we spoke, we talked a lot about right to repair because, as you know, right to repair is a global issue. Everybody's hooked on right to repair. We're trying to get this passed, not just in the United States, but across the globe. And Canada has been making a lot of progress, and that was what our last podcast episode was on. So I thought 1 year later we would take another trip and see, all right, where are we now? What's changed since the last time we spoke, and where does right to repair stand in Canada today?
Well, so much has happened in the last 12 months. I mean, we were here with you on your election night. We've since had a federal election ourselves, and we've made some major advancements on right to repair, like you say. So this time last year, JF was probably speaking about, there were 2 bills we were trying to pass within the House of Commons. They were called C-244 and 294. And these were 2 bills that were making suggested amendments to the Copyright Act. And it was to ensure that our members could bypass digital locks when it comes to accessing the diagnostic information they need to service and repair vehicles. So after Apex, a few short weeks later, those 2 bills did pass.
Wow.
So that was significant, right? And the government and us, we saw that as a crucial building block towards actual right to repair legislation, because the challenge is the 2 bills are an excellent first step, but they don't go far enough. Because, of course, there's no mandated access to that data required by the automakers to our independent automotive service providers. And, of course, there's no enforcement penalties if they don't comply. And so those are 2 key elements that we need to see in a right to repair framework nationally. But simultaneously, we've been working at it provincially. And I'll pass it to JF because there's some big advancements in the province of Quebec that we want to point to.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which is so exciting because if you want to draw a parallel between the province of Quebec and Massachusetts, this is the first time we've been able to have a specific bill on right to repair that referenced the automotive sector. It has been adopted and is now come into full force early this month on October 5th, 2025. So we now have, for the first time in Canada, a piece of legislation that really speaks to our right to repair needs for the industry. And what that does, it really is a modifications or an adaptations to the Consumer Protection Act. And so since the beginning of the month now, the Consumer Protection Agency in the province of Quebec has now released a series of information, a platform for information to consumers, but also people into the auto care sector. And we're now in the beginning of seeing people in the aftermarket able to submit a complaint to the Consumer Protection Agency to say lack of access here. Automakers are mandated by law now to make available information that's needed for the diagnostic, repair, and maintenance of vehicles. That's very exciting. Time will tell exactly to what extent the Consumer Protection Agency will issue fines and rulings in that fashion. But we're very hopeful that we're going to start to see a high level of compliance in the province as a result of that.
Wow. So we don't know what the penalties or the fines are going to be yet in that case.
They've been published, but the agency have the right to apply those cumulatively. So it's not just one vehicle, it's two vehicles, and it's a repeat of. And so those could become quite expensive for automakers if they found to be in repeat of non-compliance.
That's excellent. And I mean, what does that reporting process look like? Like, I imagine there's a hotline or a form where you call and say, I wasn't able to repair my car. Like, do we know what that looks like?
Is directly with the agency, though. They've outlined a whole process, and it's all, on their public website. And it's either consumer, because it really is about the consumer protection, or a representative of, which could be someone working in a shop that makes and file that complaint through the agency. And there's a formal process they have to follow. It's just all on their website to do. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's amazing progress. I love that you drew that parallel to Massachusetts because, of course, we're still educating the industry about what's going on in Massachusetts and Maine and federally, but there's still people that are unaware of the fact that we have a right to repair law in Massachusetts that did pass, and we're working on getting that enforced. But unfortunately, it's been going through the appeal process. The automakers have been quite sticky with us.
Well, and it's precedent setting, like you say. It's so crucial for us now that we have a jurisdiction within our own borders to point to.
Yes.
And that's what we've now seen is other provinces are now interested from that consumer protection perspective, consumer fairness, affordability, the accessibility angle. So we're talking to all the provinces.
Great.
There are different levels of conversations, but we're feeling really a strong interest from the provinces of Manitoba, Alberta. We're meeting with the province of Saskatchewan soon.
Wow.
And so we're going to explore like you, at a provincial level, like you do at the state level, as well as at the federal level simultaneously.
I love the parallel between the countries because we learn a lot from each other. And I think that's what's so great about this partnership, right? Like, we started in Massachusetts and then we went to Maine. And then apparently right to repair laws have been introduced in some way or form across industries in every single one of the U.S. states. And it sounds like Canada is well on its way to doing the same. And that's very powerful.
I'm having a conversation with my counterpart, Stuart, from WW in Australia.
Yeah.
And sharing our past experiences of how valuable coming together globally to share experiences. Yeah, there are differences. For sure, our systems are different. But there's also so much that we have in common that we could share and learn from one another and, helping each other out. And I think that the ongoing successes that we are seeing are in large part the result of that collaborations globally.
Yeah. What is one of your favorite takeaways globally from one of our partners in the right to repair battle? Because I love sitting in on those meetings and hearing, okay, here's how Australia really ramped up their grassroots. Okay, here's how the US is using really creative marketing to get the messaging out to the aftermarket, right? Like, what are some of your favorite takeaways from those meetings?
To me, it's maybe the flip side of the coin, which is what are the expected behavior of the either OEMs or dealership networks, and how they're positioning themselves, because those position again are very similar globally, right? And so it gives you a bit of insights about what to expect in terms of a counterpoint or points of clarification you need to provide to support your actions.
And the open communication, the data sharing, the information we're able to share with one another is so significant. It is the talking points I take into my meetings with Canadian officials because they're very curious about what's happening around the world. And we are a little behind. We're a little behind Australia, the EU, South Africa. And so we're able to point to these jurisdictions where we have experts. We can point to their data. Australia is the perfect example of being, 4 years ahead with actual legislation in place. What have they gone through? What have been some of the challenges? The same arguments that we're hearing from the OEs. I was just in Washington at the Legislative Summit as a guest of yours for those meetings to sit in a room with, your shop owners who are having the same challenges our shop owners are, turning away up to 5 customers a month to the dealers. I mean, again, because we share that border, we have Canadian and American drivers crossing that border thousands and thousands of times a day. How nice to point to a future idea of harmonized legislation between both countries, that we're all fighting for the same thing.
You mentioned something, you're talking about crossing the border between America and Canada. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about heavy duty and right to repair too. So those semi trucks that are delivering the goods and services, I know it's a really weird situation right now with the tariffs. I don't think we want to get into all that, but On the heavy duty right to repair side, are you guys sharing that message or hearing anything about that message at all in the industry?
There hasn't been too much to be honest. Our mandate at AIA Canada does not include the heavy duty side of the industry, but they have very much face similar challenges for sure. And the current environment obviously is not helping out at all in that regards.
Okay. Is there anything that, if you have any Canadian listeners on the Auto Care on Air podcast today, what can they do to be a partner to AIA, or how can they help in the right to repair fight?
Absolutely. I invite them to visit righttorepair.ca. It's our one-stop shop that has all of the information they need on the issue. It also has a letter template. They can plug in their postal code, which is our version of a zip code, and they can find their local official and their contact information and send that template letter to their official saying, hey, this is an issue that matters to me as a small, medium-sized business owner. This is what matters to my customers in our riding. Get the attention of the local official, because JF and I have meetings all the time with officials, but bringing in that local angle is what seals the deal and what makes it really resonate with that member of parliament. And so I invite them to do that. Follow us on social media. They can stay engaged with all of our advocacy work. We're always looking to amplify our grassroots efforts because politics is local. So it's crucial that they get involved.
Absolutely. And those voices are the most important voices, right? We've seen time and time again throughout this issue, which has been spanning for quite some time, right? Since at least 2012. The more voices, the better. And Parliament and legislators are looking for the voices, their constituents, right? They want to hear from real people.
Absolutely. It's critical. Here we are representing our members. Ultimately, they're the one who are going to benefit and the consumers of our actions. And so they got to be part of that conversation. And when they do, it's amazing. I think you and I, Emily, have seen and sat into meetings where you now have real conversations about right to repair, how does apply in a reality in the life of someone who's physically located in the riding of that member of parliament. It could relate as, oh, yeah, that's down the street of my wife or my kids are taking the cars to that particular location. I know the business. Now I understand the reality of your challenge, and that turns into additional cost, lack of access and lack of accessibility. And so those are magic moments.
Yeah, absolutely. So with C, is it 244 and 94? With those passing after Apex last year, what's next for those? Or are you now looking towards the future in getting, additional bills for the enforcement and being able to man that? What can we look forward to?
So, obviously with Quebec, we're creating that precedent. As Emily was pointing out now, we have other provinces showing interest to right to repair legislation through the lens of consumer protection. But the fact is, we don't want a patchwork approach. We prefer, obviously, to have a federal solutions like the Repair Act to right to repair. And we continue our actions with the new government to advocate for what is essentially a standalone right to repair legislation and includes automotive at the federal level.
That's right. I mean, we have a new government since our election, but it's a fragile government. It's a minority government, which means that, the stability is not there when you have a majority government situation. So that's why we're walking both pathways simultaneously to see where opportunity rises. We want to move this forward, but always the focus is to have that federal leadership, a national perspective,
Excellent. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit because right to repair is always at the forefront of our conversation, but AIA Canada is doing a lot of additional amazing work in the Canadian aftermarket. So I think we want to talk a little bit about workforce development, because that's also something that AutoCare is really highly focused on, building the pipeline, fueling the future of our industry, bringing really good talent in. And I want to hear what you guys are doing, because I got so excited at the show, honestly. Right down that hallway, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Secret Service is here.
I saw your photo.
Oh my God. ASE, shout out to ASE for bringing the Secret Service here. And the Secret Service is here because they're hiring automotive technicians. So not only can you live in DC and work on Secret Service vehicles, which are like Chevy Suburbans and stuff like that. They're armored. They're really cool. They're super specialized. But you can travel with the president and the beast, the big limo, and make sure that his vehicle stays running safely on all of the missions around the world. And I just think that is the most badass job. So I got to promote that.
Yeah. And I'll let Emily talk about our specific initiatives. But I would say that what a great example where we can inspire the young generation to say, this is a phenomenal industry that provides great rewarding opportunities. And I often say to people, I don't think we are great ambassadors for our industry. We need to be more in the forefront of telling our neighbors or family or cousins or uncles about the strength, the size, and the opportunity that exists in the auto care sector. If you want to work on something cool, you're a gamer today, well, the vehicle is really that computer on wheel, and so much more technology is getting put into vehicles today as opposed to other traditional trade. If your future calls for establishing yourself in a city, I want to live in a highly dense city, one of the major center, or no, I actually want to work in the rural areas. Well, you'll find that the aftermarket has opportunities in any places throughout North America. It doesn't matter, big or small. You could find yourself in a place where you'll find opportunities. And it's not just about being a great technician, but it's also working through this entire supply chain, parts distribution, manufacturing, and all the like. And I have been astonished over the last 10 years to run into so many people that have been extremely successful in this industry. And we got to be good ambassadors, because we should be able to attract many more people to this industry as a result of that. And, that's something that we're doing at AIA Canada.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It's the recruitment into the industry, and then it's ensuring that we are upskilling our actual technicians currently in the industry. So we're really proud to partner with the Ontario government, which is one of our provinces. We have been blessed with, $3 million of funding. So far, we're in our 5th round. We've just applied for 6th round. So fingers crossed. And that has allowed us to have our innovation and automotive training program with a handful of colleges around the province. This includes classes that recruits individuals who have just an interest in the industry. They're set up with over $1,000 of tools to get started. They're in the college classroom learning hands-on. And then it's also providing upskilling for EV training, for ADAS, for those within the industry. And again, the reality is the future of the workforce is dependent on a partnership between industry, between government, and between stakeholders. And this is the perfect way of partnering all of that, to say we all have a role to ensure that we have an excellent economy run by skilled tradespeople, the breadth of jobs available in our industry, that fuels the economy.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone's paying attention to.
Oh, I get so excited about this topic because obviously there's a lot of thrust around it, right? Like we're seeing technicians retiring. We're seeing a need for more people. There's a technician gap. Our wages are really good. We're like trying to figure out how to make this thing sexy. And I love what you said, JF, because there are so many different roles and most people just don't really think about it, right? Like, I don't think I ever thought about what industry I was going to go into until I really decided, once I was in my career for a little bit, that I wanted to do something I was passionate about. Now, not everyone's passionate about automotive, but they don't realize, automotive aftermarket can be a super resilient, super lucrative career, very recession resilient. When the economy is bad, the aftermarket is good. That's my favorite thing to tell people who are looking for a job. So I am trying to get them in here.
We're an essential service.
Yes.
And so even in the worst times, pandemic being one of them, are people still working? And so, and to your point, we're very resilient, against ups and downs in the economy. We have spent an entire generation telling our children that if they wanted to have a career, they have to go to university.
Right.
And now it's going to take maybe another generations to unwind a bit that mindset and says, no, it's not just about a path through university degree, but also rewarding careers in the trades. And so more and more, I think we're getting that message out, and it's educating parents about those opportunities so they could also be inspiring their own children to pursue those career and opportunities. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you guys are doing the programs at the college, at the collegiate level. I heard, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Sorry, is that apparently you got to get them involved younger. So they're saying you got to get the kids more interested in automotive at a younger age to help kind of facilitate that level of thinking. When you're a kid, you see something on TV and like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a marine biologist. And it's like, oh, I want to be a truck driver, or I want to be a technician, or right. So it's like fostering that at an even younger age is something that I'm hearing from our industry. We have to go to now the middle schools and figure out how do we get programs in middle schools to get them more interested, to foster that kind of thinking. What do you guys think about going even earlier in the learning process?
It's yes, guidance counselors is also another, important aspect of that. We're all, by the way, university graduates. So I think there's a bit of a bias there that plays out. It's a big lift. It requires, back to our right to repair grassroots engagement. It needs this grassroots engagement of the local shops, reaching out to the local school board. And they're all, I don't know about the US, but in Canada, all organized slightly different. So it's really, really hard to do this reach. But I think there's some value in what you're saying to increase the reach in that education about the opportunities that exist in our space.
Yeah. It's really exciting.
Absolutely.
I'm literally sitting here like writing down little campaign ideas in my notebook. Like, are you a problem solver? You could work in product marketing. Are you a creative? You can work in brand marketing, right? Like I'm sitting, behind the camera as part of the auto care team, and like Tom Ho is, his team is responsible for these graphics that you see on the podcast, and everybody sees them like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, don't you want to come like work in auto? Because you could do stuff like this and be super creative. And it's like, it's not just designing a car or whatever you might think it is when you hear about working in automotive. You think, oh, I got to work at a dealer and sell a car. There's so much here.
Well, and that's what's so impressive with women in auto care. I was at the breakfast this morning. You were, honoring your award champions. And it's like, that's something we need to tell little girls too. Look at the breadth of jobs available in an industry like ours that maybe they would have shied away from or just thought, oh, I don't fit in there.
Yeah.
And look at how much that's grown. I think there was 450 of us this morning.
Crazy.
And I know that that's really seen growth over the last few years. Talk about another grassroots movement. There's power in the people spreading the word.
Were you there last year where we had the children's book at Women in Auto Care?
I saw after.
Shout out to Napa for that. That's the coolest part. Napa and Tech Force partnered on a book for little girls about girls who become automotive mechanics. And like my heart just like melted and I had to buy 10 of them right away. It was the coolest thing.
So important.
We've moved and come a long way, but there's so much more to do. I remain somewhat disappointed that today, even today, the percentage of women pursuing, trades is so small. And I think we all need to take stock of the fact that we have not yet been able to transform our way of working and providing an environment that's suitable for women to enter. And our statistics remain dismal in this point, that when we are able to attract these women to take a career in trade, sadly, we lose them about 4 times the rate of others. Yeah, in Canada, the latest stats is, very few are left 5 years after they enter the space, because we're not creating the conditions to be able for them to feel that they're part of our industry. And so it's a bit of a failure of industry leaders in that point. But again, more is being done, and I think this is great, but we need to do even more.
Do you think any immediate thoughts on what we could do to be better at creating that environment for women? We
got to create an environment that is welcoming diversity, that is adapting to the new reality. You have young families. It's being able to adapt the way that you structure your work. That's not conducive just to men, but also to women that have different dynamics and perspective. I often find myself in this industry with many super women who are really, being able to dabble in professional work and families and demands that are just put greater on women. And so are we in our shop, in an environment, creating the policies, the process that makes it easier for able to attract and retain women?
That's such great advice. I mean, we do a lot of work on this at Women in Auto Care, and I feel so lucky that we're so progressive in creating these environments, making sure there's flexibility in the work schedule, right? You can't just say have to work a 9 to 5, right? Like you got to drop kids off to school, pick them up, right? Even for just families who don't have children, maybe you're taking care of an elderly parent. There's all these different considerations that I think came to light after our lives changed after COVID, and the way we worked has never been the same since. So some people are 100% back in the office. Some people are still fully working remote. There's hybrid, but there's all these new working styles. I think that didn't exist before, and there's a rigidity about certain parts of our industry that could do with a little oil, if I'm doing a Wizard of Oz reference, since we went to the Sphere last night. A little oil in the Tin Man here. A little flexibility.
You got it.
Yeah. Anything else on workforce we want to touch on?
I think just that in our industry we struggle with again, retaining talent, just like so many within Canada, within the US, but that there is opportunity. Like you were saying, with an aging workforce, with the advancements of technology, I think someone 10 years ago who would have thought, oh, well, I'm not, a mechanical guy. I'm too techie. I can't be in this industry. Well, the future is ready for you. Just take a walk around Apex and see all the technology available. So I think it's just ensuring that, again, partnering with educational institutions, talking about the opportunities, pushing that government for increased funding for skilled trades. We just had our federal budget yesterday. There is a promise and a commitment for a little bit more investment there. We're going to push hard for that.
That's great. That's really good news. And fingers crossed,
yes,
on wood for that. All right. I don't want to bring up the terrible T word, but I would be remiss if I didn't. But I think geopolitics is so weird right now. I hate reading about it. It's so confusing to our members. Things change every single day. But I think the one thing that I want to state is what is happening in politics is not reflective of our aftermarket relationship across the border between U.S. and Canada, right? Like, we love each other. We're fantastic partners. We want to work together to make the most efficient supply chain possible. So anything we want to share on that front?
I mean, that's been the consistent message from the entire automotive industry since all this started happening between North America, is that we're on the same team. We want to work together.
Absolutely.
From an aftermarket perspective, the reality is we're dealing in unprecedented times, and the unpredictable nature of the administration and the announcements are coming. That makes it challenging to do business. When we surveyed our members last, from a broad, bird's eye view perspective, increased costs of doing business, cross-border supply chains issue. When it comes to increased costs, who does that get passed down to? The consumer, which then hurts Canadians, hurts Americans. I think, again, specific industries have been targeted in this battle, automotive included. We, like every industry in Canada, want to see resolution soon. We want to have a free trade agreement. Think about AIA and AutoCare. We love our partnership. Absolutely. We want that open communication. We want to continue. So we want to see some sort of resolution. We've, in Canada, launched officially the USMCA stakeholder consultations. What does Canada have to say about going into these negotiations? But we have to see, because, just a couple of weeks ago, we were close to signing on the dotted line, and then one of our premiers unfortunately triggered the president in a negative way, and now we've gone back 10 steps. So monitoring it closely every day, wanting to protect our industries, and hoping for resolution in the future.
Yeah, uncertainty obviously is not good for business on both sides of the border. But at the same time, it speaks to how resilient is the automotive aftermarket. And so what we've seen from our members are ways to adapt to that new reality, looking at alternative sources. And frankly, we also see it through the actions of the Canadian government. So now you're seeing an environment in which where we have had, strong, close relationship and collaborations between Canada and the U.S. Now there's exploration of, okay, how do we reduce interprovincial barriers between the provinces within Canada? So where before maybe some of the trade was not as easy between provinces, now we're finding ways to optimize that. We're now exploring other places around the world, whether it's the EU, other places, can we start to establish bilateral commerce to diversify our revenues? And the one piece that maybe people don't quite appreciate is that when the U.S. administration imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese import related to EVs specifically, the Canadian government was very supportive of that and basically mirrored those tariffs in Canada as well. Now, for the first time in 8 years, the Prime Minister of Canada has sat down with his counterpart from China, and they have, agreed to reestablish more formal communication. And I would not be surprised if we start to see a bit of a reductions of the impact of those tariffs to China. So are we going to find ourselves with an emergence of a new supply of Chinese vehicle into the Canadian marketplace? That's something I'm going to start to think about and plan into. What does it mean for the automotive aftermarket if we go towards now a slightly different park of vehicle? Right. Many years ago, our parks were a little different. And now we essentially really service and maintain a very similar park of vehicle. But the result of these tariffs and those barriers may create opportunities for the Canadian government to build these new relationships outside and, again, bring a different park of vehicle into the Canadian marketplace.
Wow. And that's so interesting because we saw that happen in Latin America, right? That influx of Chinese vehicles, and now the parts inventory looks totally different. What you need to stock, what those replacement part looks like actually is still to be seen. They're trying to figure out, are these more economical vehicles going to have these parts replacements, or are they throwaway cars? And it's still to be seen in that market because it's so new. So lots of considerations.
That's right.
Lots of considerations. Anything else on the terrible T front, the trade and the tariffs that we want to mention?
Let's leave it there and cross our fingers.
I love that. I appreciate that. Just waiting with bated breath.
That's
We're gonna get through this together, guys.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else that we need to talk about that we didn't touch that we want to cut in here?
I like looking forward to the future. And if we're going to start predicting things like, thinking about where EVs are headed and things like that, I want to say that in the next 5 years, I hope we really go from just talking about right to repair to actually having enforceable legislation in place so that we can really get down to living the life of true consumer affordability, of true consumer access. America and Canada has a ton of population in rural areas. They need to be able to continue to have their vehicles serviced. All of that feeds into a better aftermarket and better competition, which is better for both countries.
Better for everyone.
So let's just say that's my prediction and hope for the future.
Fantastic. I love that. Emily and JF, thank you so much for joining me again on the show. Really fantastic information and really looking forward to seeing what's next.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.